everyone, welcome to CNN News 18. This is Sriya Kundu, and today we have quite an interesting conversation ready for you, ready to be played out for you. And well, this conversation is about sex. Yes, you heard it right. And I'm sure a lot of people might get interested and might also be alarmed out there in our audience as to what is this episode about. Well, for all of you, I will not keep you guessing anymore. It is about this new movie that has come out, Lust Stories 2. And we do have a very interesting guest joining us to have this conversation, who I will just introduce. But before that, sex as a conversation has always, mostly in the Indian society, been restricted to two aspects. One has been about procreation, and the other has mostly been related to assault. But Love Stories 2 has given a very fresh perspective at how physicality matters, how central moments between a couple matters. And well, like I said, we do have a very interesting guest to join us in this conversation. It is one of the filmmakers of this particular anthology. We have with us Mr. R Balki. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
We are so glad and enthralled to have you here as well. Well, like I said, our conversations regarding sex. In fact, your story is the first story in the anthology Lust Stories 2. So, firstly, what gave you the idea to come up with Made for Each Other?
No, it just happened. I was just thinking of what to do, and suddenly an idea came in. That I want to do a lust story without showing any lust, but actually, almost like a family film. My thing was always families are created by love and lust. And you can't watch a story on lust with a family. Why not? Why is everybody so shy of this entire thing? So I said, okay, fine, without rebelling against too many things. Let me just tell a story of the importance of sex in life, and told through a cute grandmother, because I believe older people are far more progressive than what we think they are. They know a lot. They've lived life, and for them, it's not it's commonsensical. It's not about being cool or progressive or anything of that sort. It's just being really commonsensical. What are you going to do? What is the biggest driving force in a marriage? Yes, there is companionship. Yes, there's compatibility. But if you're not compatible as men and women in bed, so what are you going to do? So that's a very important question that a lot of us have not answered in our society and are shying away from answering it. So we said, let's make it a fun kind of a watch, a love story that a whole family can watch.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's a very important and interesting point that you've made there. And while I was watching it, I somewhat felt like it almost came out as a grandma's tale. If that's how it was presented, but the message behind it was very important, and the way it was narrated, that brings in a very interesting angle to this conversation. What gave you the thought that yes, definitely, like you said, that it is a family oriented story that you wanted to do, but when we speak about families having this conversation, I unfortunately in the Indian society we still don't openly talk about sex being not just an activity for the responsibility of giving birth to the next generation, but it is also about the compatibility between a couple. That is a conversation that we don't usually have in Indian families, even now for that matter. What would you say about that?
See, my first point is it's actually a lot of fun. It gives you so much pleasure. So
Hmm.
why are we turning this into one serious, either a medical kind of are you okay in bed? Are you kind of good together? Are you just enjoying yourselves as a couple? It's not about if two people are not good together sexually. It doesn't mean they're not good together sexually with anybody else. The fact of the matter is you need to enjoy each other both physically, mentally, spiritually, everything else. Why is the physical part any less than the rest of it? So it's just fun. It's a lot of joy. It's given to you by nature, your bodies, and therefore I think, and there's a lot you can experience through the simple activity of having sex. So it's not to be meant taken so seriously. It was not supposed to be a message-oriented film. My thing of starting it was saying, okay, when you say love story, okay, everybody's going to be expecting steamy scenes and edgy stuff and that stuff. And so I said, okay, let's kind of do exactly the opposite of what people expect. and especially the intellectuals. It's all about this kind of cutting edge emotion, or that dark space, or this space, that space. I said, no, let me do the lightest and the funnest space available in possible in this setup. So that's how I started, and that's how I did it. And I was very clear that I don't want to show. I actually wanted to treat it like almost like a censor board where to kind of censor it. They can't give it an A certificate. They'll have to say UA because there is no intimate scene or anything of that sort. And it's a grandmother who's a normal grandmother who's kind of doing her puja, doing her this thing, doing her prayers. So why can't she talk about sex? Because she had sex. That's how she's given birth to her son, and that's how the granddaughter also has arrived. So the fuss happens when I feel, because sometimes we just uh, shut our minds off. We're just kind of, we say no, we don't want to go there, as a rigid kind of a stubborn behavior of human thinking. So I think this, just to say it's just a stubbornness if you're not to think about it, or to say that's taboo or whatever stuff that there is. So just move it. When you're old, you don't have time to waste on such nonsense. So you kind of say it a lot better than
Right.
when you're slightly middle-aged, where you still think there is society and people, what do people think of you and things like that. And it's not about generally talking about it. It's not so much talking about it. It's about just understanding it. You don't have to, like, things like periods and things like sex, whatever. It's not about people going and talking about it in open. There are things you may want to talk about in open, and things you may not want to talk about open. You have to respect everybody's individual, sense of behavior. But it's about not feeling shy of thinking a certain way. Not so much talking of it in a certain way. You're forced to talk because you're not thinking. If you did think, then you don't need to talk, you just think.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a lovely point you brought across here. And when you actually do talk about intimate scenes, that's very important, especially in this particular anthology that we have, Love Stories too. We have seen that the stories, definitely, they're very refreshing. But yes, the minute you hear the word lust stories, those thoughts keep coming to your mind that yes, maybe we'll have steamy sex scenes here and there, whatever the stories might be. This particular movie was more focused on the plot points, on the concepts, on the physical preferences that people have, sexual preferences that people have, and how it doesn't just have to, restrict itself to just having a conversation about sex, but it's also about being accepted in the society with your own interests. Of course, there is definitely a point of your particular interest shouldn't be hampering somebody else's life. It shouldn't hurt someone else's sentiments. But I think the stories that Love Stories 2 brought up in this anthology, this had a lot to do more with much more interesting and open concepts. And so when I talk about that, do you think that in this particular society that is going ahead, the kind of thought process that goes around relationships in general has started changing for this generation? Uh, things are people the newer generations end up accepting more of what would probably be considered quirky, or for that matter not be given or heard, not be heard at all in the society, not be accepted at all in the society. So do you think that is what this particular anthology was focusing more on?
No, it's not that. I said, despite, I think we all like to, there's nothing, we all like to watch things that we haven't watched. Steamy scenes are kind of relatively rare in Indian cinema. So it's lovely to watch lust or some kind of photo. We cannot even, we can't have a picture of an Indian couple making love on screen like you can have, for example, if you see a Kate Winslet in The Reader, or if you take something else. Even you can, it's so beautiful. You don't even think of it as anything else. It's so beautiful, but you can't imagine it like that of anything. So I feel it's always nice to see beautifully shot sensuality in our cinema. And I think some of our stories and love stories also showcase that. It's quite lovely.
Right.
But the trip is not about evolution society. I think it's like we've got so much social media, we're exposed to so much of the world, there's so much of content coming in, everything else. We have an artificial censorship that's going on, but the content is all over the world, all over the country. So, but I think despite all of it, despite all that, as Indians, till we start seeing ourselves as beautiful images of sensuality, we can keep quoting the Kama Sutra, we can keep quoting a lot of things, we can keep quoting our age old traditions or whatever. But till you imagine yourself as sensual? Can we see Indians as sensual people, as as um, almost like I can see two Indians making love and not kind of say cheat, and I can look at it so
Right.
beautifully. Till that point happens in that thing, I think we are all going to be struggling with this fact of completely okay with sensuality all across the world, and it's a completely little uncomfortable sensuality in our country. And it's not so much about culture, tradition, whatever. It's the fact that we haven't seen enough of
Right.
sensuality in this country. So we can quote a few examples here and there, but they're not enough.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
got to be coming into mainstream for us to accept us, feel more beautiful about ourselves, feel more sensual about ourselves. It's very necessary for that. One is the titillation. Of course, there is a titillation that comes along with everything else under the sun. But that is, beyond that, the richest space is the fact that more and more films that showcase sensuality in Indians come out, we will all be more comfortable. We'll all kind of think of it a lot more beautifully than what we are.
Right, right. I mean, honestly, if we track your work, even back from your days in the advertisement world, you've always been very bold about the message you want to send across out there. And I think a voice like yours, when it comes to stories like this, it definitely, like, people do definitely expect, have certain expectations, do look up to. So, what is the message out there? So, when I speak about the message out there, that's where I was trying to circle back in the point about uh, if you look at society now, like, you have concepts like polyamory or even relationships like a throuple, which have even started making its head in showing up its head in the Indian society. And somewhere, of course, thanks to digitization and the technological advancements that we have, the Indians have been more exposed to the kind of relationships, to different kinds of sensuality, sensual experiences that they can have. So, I mean, a movie like Love Stories 2, or even Love Stories for that matter, can you imagine it being directed, being made 10 years back, is like as recent in the past as 10 years back, and being accepted by the society out there?
See, I'm not so sure whether we have, uh, I know we've really progressed that way or regressed. I'm not very sure of that. But
You
I
say
keep
we
saying
progressed?
this. I keep saying that while there is a lot of realities in society, in pockets of society, and actually it's prevalent. I mean, there are so many affairs in even in small towns and villages. So many people. There are all kinds of relationships which are happening everywhere. But it's all under the stuff. What I was referring to is not really what's happening in society, how
Mm,
society wants itself to be seen. They're two
mm,
different things. What's happening in society is not necessarily how it wants to be seen. So they may want to make love, they may want to have an affair, but they
mm.
can't see two Indian bodies kind of making love. They feel a little uncomfortable. The same person who's having an affair with somebody else can't quite see this as quite sensual. Maybe because we haven't shown it essentially enough, or we haven't had enough opportunities to portray it in different ways. I don't know what it is. There is a visual perception and there is a reality. They're two different things. I'm only
Mm.
talking about the visual perception, nothing else. And
Right.
10 years back, yeah, I suppose everything changes. There is a way of kind of talking. A lot of things that we talk today, we wouldn't even make sense of a few years back. But I don't think it's been, such a big leap that we could not have done it 10 years back. Yes, there would be more people saying, wow, oh God, what are you saying? Those kind of things. A little more easy because people are saying everything under the sun.
Mm.
But to be very honest, the kind of progress, the kind of ease that we must have had with these kind of things has really not happened with time. You know, there's a shift, but the shift is not uh, big enough. I don't know whether it's good. I don't know whether it's bad. But the shift is definitely not anywhere close to what the reality of the world is and what the prevalence in social media is, what people are actually watching, what people are actually talking, and what people are actually doing. What's in communication and what is in this thing is a little behind what's really happening in reality out there.
Right, right. I mean, when you talk about that, that does raise a question about. So, a film like Love Stories 2, I don't know whether it would absolutely be, categorized under a commercial film, because I mean, Indian cinema
It
has
won't. It won't.
always,
It
it
won't. You won't even. You
it
won't.
won't
You won't even be able
exactly,
to. You won't even be able to call it love stories. It will be given an A, triple A
exactly.
certificate. But even if it's
No,
not, but to
right,
call it love stories,
absolutely.
there'll be a problem. So Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. That way the more of that way OTT has come back and has
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
come out and exposed people to a lot of things. But it's
Mm,
not if people are very many people are comfortable, even if you say love stories, for example. I had to ask my mother. I said, "Come and watch one story. You're not going to be embarrassed by this story. Just watch it." She said, "What is it called?" She said, "Lust." I said, "Lust story." She said, "Yeah, what? I can't watch all this nonsense." She really, it was nonsense. I said, "It's not nonsense. Just watch it. It's fun. Lust stories." I had to actually really force her because it's called lust story.
right.
And she watched it and she giggled her way through it, and she said all kinds of things. She said, "Now, I think the grandmother is very frank." I said, "Thank you very much for doing that." So, but there's a lot of discomfort in talking about it, while you may enjoy it.
Mm,
So that's what I felt. Yeah.
right.
Um,
I think there's a lot of expectations riding on the grandmothers out there now after this movie.
yeah. I hope every grandmother gets a whack to their families and says that,
They will make sure
"Come
the
on."
grandmothers are taken for these arranged marriages. So whatever marriage, wherever
Correct,
there
correct,
is a
correct.
talk about it, they will definitely take their grandmothers and push them to the front. Now, why don't you lead the conversation now?
But it's so funny. It's almost like sometimes even there are a lot of people having affairs before marriage, both the
Mm,
girls and the boys. But
mm,
when it comes to marriage, they don't suddenly think sex is a big thing. They think of
right.
it as families and future and this thing. And that's why it's up. A lot of them don't kind of work as well as it should, because
Mm.
it's not about you having had a relationship before or not. It's about how good is the relationship you're going to have for the rest of your life. And that's what is really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. But coming back to the conversation about Indian cinema, I mean, what would your comment be on this shift? I mean, yes, you again said that it probably isn't changing as fast as it should, but then after the OTT has made its head, and now it's become quite a predominant platform for people to watch movies or shows for that matter, whatever it is, whatever entertainment content they want to consume. What is the shift that you see in Indian cinema in general? Would you say that it has started becoming more plot centric than being the super hit, superstar based movies that we used to have as commercial films earlier?
No, I don't think so. I think, yeah, people are producing interesting stuff. They're producing a lot more interesting stuff.
Hmm.
It was not as if interesting stuff was not produced before. There was. The quantity may differ. But I
Hmm.
think the biggest change that's happened is people have too much of content.
Hmm.
Content is no longer an aspirational kind of a thing. There are very few things. There's, for example, if you see Shah Rukh Khan's film coming right now, there are people kind of waiting for it and kind of doing this. There are few things like that which are almost like festivals that are coming. But
Hmm.
nobody is dying like before to see a movie because they already don't have time to watch what's coming to them day in and day out and day in and day out.
Right.
So I think we are going through a crisis of excessive content. So I think that's excessive content. So good, bad, plot points, this point, we're getting hit from every side. There are some fabulous content from across the world we have access to. There are things which are coming on our televisions. There is so much of sport that's happening. And there
Hmm.
is so much, we just are never going, we can just sit like zombies and watch this content all of our lives. We will not be bored. Yeah, we'll be very sick and unhealthy, but we will not be bored. So there is just too much of content. And I think cinema and entertainment is grappling with that.
Right. But as a filmmaker, how do you see that? Do you see that as more competition, or do you think,
Then I
yes,
don't see it
now,
as
now there's like a positive reinforcement of sorts to produce better content?
No, I don't think it's about producing better. Nobody wants to produce bad content even before.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to produce good content. Some content turns out to be good, some content turns out to be bad. I don't
Hmm.
think this really motivates you to produce better content. This actually makes you a little bit more depressed and saying, shit, yeah, it's not as it's whatever I do is not going to be so exciting for people as it was before. So that
Right.
little bit of that thing is always there in every filmmaker, I think, and most filmmakers. That shit, we thought we were special as filmmakers. We're not so special because there's too much of it. The commoditization of cinema is happening very fast.
Hmm.
Like in a lot of industries, there were stars who are no longer stars today. So is our industry kind of thing. There are not going to be, you're not going to be so special
Hmm.
like before. You're special when there is less, when there's less of you. When there's more of you, you're not going to be special. You're freely available. You're there, and people are saying, What's the big deal with you guys?" So
Right.
people don't even care what's the film coming next week. Oh, it's come, is it? What is that film about? die-hard film
Going to
goers.
the theater has sort of, subsided now among even
Forget
families.
going to the theaters, even watching on OTT has subsided. Because I just feel that people have too much to watch there too.
Hmm.
Everywhere people have too much to watch. So it's
Hmm.
not just going to the theaters, it's everywhere. So I don't even know whether it's a battle of OTT versus cinema anymore, or it's just like it's a flood of content. It's just hitting people like there is no tomorrow. So the joy of the discovery of the cinema, or seeing it first, or that thing of waiting for some piece to kind of go there is gone. And I don't think it's necessarily because I think we produced a lot of wonderful stuff. Some breathtaking stuff has happened in the last during this entire thing.
Hmm.
But there's just too much of it. It's too much of it for me. Also, would have loved to have this 10 years back, and so wish I had all the films in the world. I can't keep pace with it.
Hmm.
I'm saying I don't want to see so much. I will end up my whole life just watching, and doing nothing. Already I'm lazy, and I don't want to get even lazier. So
What are you watching on OTT right now?
I just finished the what is that season of Ted Lasso, the latest season, and we are watching all kinds of things. We are watching. What did we watch recently? What's the finished Succession, the last portion. I really like of the Indian stuff. I really like Panchayat very much. We finished watching
Oh,
Panchayat,
yes. Hmm.
and few things I see. I don't even remember what I watched last night. I don't remember.
Become like a daily activity now for all of us.
Yeah, you just move on. You're moving on. You're watching three
Yeah.
films at the same time, and you're watching one episode of this, one episode of this. It's chaos. It's chaos right now.
Absolutely. But if I'm to come back to love stories too, other than your story, and I am including all the stories in both the anthologies, which one is your favorite?
Um,
And why?
I like Karan's episode in the first love story
The
very
first
much.
one. Hmm.
I thought it was hilarious. It's a hilarious take, and it was great fun. Bold in a very enjoyable way, which was very.
That was
And I
also
like
in a family setting. Yes.
yeah, but it was very little more out there, and it was actually one of the best pieces of work of Karan.
Hmm.
And I feel I enjoyed that a hell of a lot. This one I liked. I actually enjoyed all the stories. I like Konkana's for its take
Hmm.
on this how almost like we misjudge we kind of it's a complex story, but it's actually beautifully portrayed.
You
I
don't
like
know what
Amit's
is right, what is wrong. The
what
lines
is
are all
wrong,
blurred there.
all
Hmm.
blurred there. I like Amit's story also because it's a
Hmm.
very
Ironic.
ironic kind of a story. I like Sujoy. Sujoy's story was mad. He went on a trip, and it's a great thing because this is the time where you get to experiment on such trips on a love
Hmm.
story. He went on a trip. It's actually a very bold thing to do for him.
Right.
So
Right.
I actually liked each one for its own thing, and I enjoyed in the last stories. I distinctly remember enjoying Karan's film a lot.
Right, right. Yeah, that was definitely the talk of the town back then
Yeah,
when it had released. And everybody, and I think the journey started with that. Everybody was quite on the edge with the fact that, oh my God, so here is a show, here is a movie that we have,
it was the
and
first. It was the
it has
first
finally
series
come out to
produced.
be that bold. One more thing, and this is about your next project. And like, I have been a big fan of your work. I have followed all your movies, and I am quite excited about the next project that you have, which is premiering at the Indian Film Festival at Melbourne. That is Ghumar.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about it.
See, Gumar is a story of a girl who's a phenomenal prodigy batsman who loses her um, right hand,
Mm-hmm.
and how she gets back to the Indian team with one hand, and the
Right.
efforts that go into that. But I think beyond this, beyond the story of resilience, beyond the story of it's an inspirational story. Beyond
Mm.
the story of grit and determination, it is to me. I'm most excited about Goomer because it is not yet another cricket film. It gives back. It gives back something new to cricket, which is actually the discovery of a new delivery in cricket. I am a cricket maniac. So therefore, for me to do yet another cricket film and just match and shoot it correctly like a cricket match should be shot, is quite boring. So I would like to give back to cricket what cricket is not seen, rather than borrow from cricket. That we all see cricket every day. What can I give back to cricket which makes everyday people who watch cricket kind of sort of say, what was that? You know, that is the Goomer is actually the discovery of a new delivery in cricket through this inspirational story. For me, that is most exciting, and it's really exciting to work with Abhishek and Sami. I think she is possibly. I don't think anybody else could have done this role except her, because she is the rare sportsman that we have in our industry. She's a true sportsman. She's more a sportsman than anybody else.
Right. And you're working with Angad Bedi again in this project.
Yes, I'm working with Angad. Has actually got a very complex role in this film, and the way he's pulled it off with utter simplicity, because he's actually being a very strong man who's at the mercy of a girl who's going through a lot of pain. So it's like it's a very complex role for him to do. And Shabana, again, so it was a great pleasure to work with her for the first time in my life. What an actor! She's a person who doesn't know a word about sport, and she's playing a character who is a cricket addict. So for her to pull it off so effortlessly and tout scores like she's always been watching cricket all her life is the sign of a great actress. So that's that. This is an ensemble, and Shivi is making it. Shivendra Singh Gangarpur, who's actually kind of the film preservation king of the world, is making his debut. He was a friend of mine, so I asked him to make his debut. So it was good fun to do this. So yeah, all in all, it was two things coming together: my love for cricket and my love for film. So it was great fun.
It's a range of work that you have out there for sure. The kind of movies that you've worked with, and all of them have one out of the box idea that is driving the story. So definitely what you said about OTT is right, that there is a lot of content out there, but I think it is people like you who come up with these brilliant pieces even amidst all the chaos that is there, and people do look up to it. People do want to watch it. And definitely, we are looking forward to Ghumar and your next project, that is, and all the very best for its premiere.
Thank you so much.
And this was a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for joining
Great
us.
speaking to you.